We are live. Ask everyone.
Hello, we are live. I think so. We're live on YouTube, live on Facebook, and can I minimize this so I can see myself? There we go. We're live. So we're trying this out. Hopefully, no technical difficulties. But season 11, we are launched. Thank you guys all for the support, tuning in. Obviously, crazy times the past few months with the COVID pandemic, and still also trying to get some episode tapes. We tomorrow have our Olympian Ryan Lochte episode. We spent the day with him in Florida. That's coming out on YouTube this weekend on TV. We then spent the day in Park City with Lindsey Vonn. Super excited about that one, as well as we just spent 3 hours taping an episode with Tom Hanks. We're going to be We're going to be taking your questions here coming up. So happy to answer or talk about anything you guys want to. We have Elisa over here that's going to be feeding me questions. We're broadcasting from our new St. Louis office, so also excited about that. Obviously, we kicked off the show season 11 with our Dak Prescott episode. Was really proud, and I speak for both myself and our team, proud to have the opportunity to participate in that taping and be part of such a powerful conversation on mental health. I was grateful that Dak was willing to share his story, that of his late brother, as well as his older brother Tad and dad Nathaniel talking to us. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, clips are on YouTube. It's also airing now on TV. You can check our website for TV air times. Again, taking your questions momentarily, so send them in. Also, I mentioned this before, we love the guest suggestions from you guys. Oftentimes, we pursue people for bookings that you guys suggest. So comment on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram. Email me, graham@grahambensinger.com. We love the suggestions. Also, everybody kind of consumes our content on different platforms, but we have clips on YouTube and Facebook, some behind the scenes stuff on Instagram. And then the show airs on TV on the NBC, Fox, CBS, or ABC station around the US, as well as on Fox Sports Nets, NBC Sports Nets internationally. ESPN carries us, BT Sport in the UK and Ireland, taxi cabs on video screens. The long form version of the interviews are in podcasts. So all that information is on grahambensinger.com if you want to check it out. So without further ado, your questions, and feel free to fire them away.
Thanks, Graham. So Chris from Facebook, he is one
Hey,
of
Chris.
our top fans. He's great. He is asking how many people are on our staff. So can you tell us a little bit about how the show gets made?
Yeah, sure. So, we have like 10 or so folks on our team. So, I think one of the things that's unique about our show is we don't have some big network backing us or funding this. So it's our small team based in St. Louis. We, in addition to me hosting the show, our team edits it, films it, produces it, uh, goes out and gets the sponsors that help in funding the content, as well as syndicating and licensing the content. So we do all of that in house. So have a small, nimble team. Everybody wears a lot of different hats and works long hours, but we wouldn't be able to do any of this without our team. So also similarly grateful for everybody we have on our staff, Elisa included right over there.
Thanks, Graham. So on YouTube, Alex wants to know if you were a little bit timid when you interviewed Mike Tyson.
Was I timid when I interviewed Mike Tyson? Yeah, for sure. I mean, one, it's Mike Tyson, and especially after having prepared for the taping, you're aware of his history. But also, it was second season of the show, the first time, second or third season of the show, first time I interviewed him, and I think I would just oftentimes get a little more nervous when you're sitting in front of these larger than life athletic figures. I also asked him a couple questions that he was less than thrilled by, completely innocent and unintentional on my end, but he didn't like the questions nonetheless, and you could just tell in his eyes he, was ready to move on.
So on Facebook, Jonathan Whipple asks, who is the one person you want to interview that you haven't had the chance to yet?
Sure, so many, and again, taking your guys' questions. So, feel free to submit them. Oh, are we not live on Instagram? We are not live on Instagram. Man, we were trying to go live on Instagram. So
sorry guys, I didn't hack it.
Elisa. So I mean, so many people that I'm interested in profiling for episodes of the show. One, a sitting president would be amazing. Serena Williams, Michael Jordan, Lance Armstrong, Tiger Woods, to name a few. Lots of folks. And, I wish I could say these are, 5 or 10 minute, I'm sorry, like, month-long booking process for pursuing somebody, but oftentimes these take multiple years because of the amount of time that we're trying to get with the people that we're profiling. We did one with Jack Nicklaus a while back where we spent 3 days over 5 cities with him, flying Dallas to Santa Barbara to LA to Cabo with him on his jet on a business trip, and that took 5 years to book. The Dak Prescott taping took, a year to book. Lindsey Vonn, multiple years. Tom Hanks, I first started emailing with him 4 years ago, and it wasn't until recently that we got the taping. So it is for sure a process.
So on Facebook, Matt Conway asks, what's your process when it comes to compiling research for your interviews?
Sure. And let me know when we
are ready. Sorry. Guys, Android to iPhone, you should commiserate with me. You just press the button at the bottom.
All right, here, well, it's the wrong way, but all right, here we are. We're now getting ready to go live we are live now on Instagram as well, and taking your questions. So feel free to send them in. But the process for research, so as I've mentioned before, we put probably 100 hours of research into each interview preceding the sit down between myself, our couple producers, our part-time researcher, Brian, and we try to gather every story of consequence ever done on the person that we're profiling, whether that be, audio, video, text, you name it, their entire life. We try and gather everything into a research packet, which, is oftentimes several hundred pages long, in addition to any book that they might have written. And then, in the couple weeks leading up to the taping, I just consume it all. And then we, as a team, have a prep meeting a couple days before the taping. And that's really it. The one thing I told myself all along was I'm far from being the most talented host or interviewer or anything like that. But the only thing I felt like I had going for me was, I prepared as much as I possibly could for the taping. And if you are really prepared, that just separates yourself from a lot of other people that are interviewing the person, and inherently creates the opportunity for the person to give better access. So that is it. Thanks for the question. But yeah, prep's a big one for me. So yeah,
All right.
hi
So
Instagram.
yeah, talk to Instagram for a minute. We've got a lot of people
Oh,
down
here's
here.
here's another one. Mike, how did you find players' numbers and contact information as a high schooler? Did you have any friends that got you the inside scoop? Thanks, Mike from Instagram. Uh, for me, it started when I was in eighth grade with an internet sports radio show. I created in a website that just kind of served as an archival home for my work. And I actually, when I first had the concept for that show, I just went to the library, looked up home addresses for former baseball players and Hall of Famers, and I snail mailed a letter explaining the concept for what I wanted to do and create, and asked for interviews, and got a few responses. Hall of Famer Ernie Banks, Hall of Famer Bob Feller, Will Clark, and Tim McCarver called my parents' house. This is eighth grade at the time. And sorry if you've heard this story before, but didn't have a cell phone. My mom or dad would answer, and they'd yell back to me and say, so and so's on the phone. And so that was just kind of how it started for me. And then after you have a track record of getting access to folks, it then makes it easier to get access to others, because they've seen other people on your roster. So that is it. And Keenan, thanks for the job request. If we had an opening, we would consider you for it. Actually, we do. One just opened up. We have a producer digital position. So if you've qualifications, Graham at GrahamBensinger.com, and I'll connect you with our team.
So, Graham, on YouTube, you were asked whether or not you allow athletes to vet the questions before you answer them in the interview. Do you let people have a say in the questions?
No, certainly don't let people have a say in the questions, or how we phrase them or anything like that. Every so often, there is a sensitive topic that the person we're booking or the representative of that person won't want us to ask about. And that's in those situations, you just generally have to talk through it to get the person comfortable with whatever the subject matter is, and make sure they feel like you're going to be fair, and present the content in an appropriate fashion, which most often is the concern when it comes to a sensitive topic. But yeah, outside of that, that's really the extent of those situations. And there are probably occasional exceptions to the rule, none that immediately come to mind. But I would just say, I'm certainly conscious of the fact that most of the people that we're pursuing for these episode tapings, these A-list individuals, don't need the media exposures that we bring them, because everybody wants access to them, and our ability to have a show is predicated on access. So certainly you want to be fair and for people to have positive experiences, because everybody talks. If I'm trying to book somebody else and they've seen their buddies done the show, they're going to call their buddy and ask what that person thought of the experience.
And you're getting back at this one. Global Kid Media, one of our favorite people, he says, when are you going to pop the question to that special young lady out there?
When am I going to pop the question to the special? Well, first there has to be a special young lady, Global Kid Media. So thank you. I did your podcast, and I remember me and your dad were conspiring to give you a hard time about your love life. So I appreciate the question.
Do you have a current passion project? That's from Eli on Facebook.
Current passion project, meaning what?
This is Graham right here. He only works like
No.
something that you love to do, whether you get paid for it or not.
I mean, I outside of work, I like being active, like hiking and that sort of thing. I try and spend some time in Colorado every year, and there are like 52 or 53 14,000 foot peaks. I've done somewhere around 40 of them. They're like half day or day long hikes. So like being active. I also, when we aren't, obviously things have changed a little bit right now with COVID, but during normal times, I like traveling a lot. Our travel has been significantly scaled back because of COVID. We're still traveling like a couple times a month. But during normal times, it's fun traveling internationally. And, we've been fortunate through this show to go all over the world, from Africa to New Zealand to India to Alaska to Russia to the Philippines to you name it, Azerbaijan in the Middle East. Uh, Whenever we're in those places and schedules permit, I'll try and spend an extra couple days to explore the area uh, on my own.
P Waka Flocka on Instagram asks, which broadcaster did you look up to when you were younger?
Oh, so many. Uh, Bob Costas, Joe Buck, both have lived in St. Louis. Mike Wallace, the late 60 Minutes broadcaster, Howard Stern, Oprah, all have kind of varying styles, but they're each great conversationalists, and so I respect all of them for different reasons, and some of whom I still go to for advice. I was bugging Bob Costas for advice just last week, so uh, grateful that some of them have been so kind to me over the years and willing to have dialogue and share advice that is kind of invaluable.
On YouTube, P Mills 45 said, "Do you think the Terrell Owens interview changed the course of your life?"
Do I think the Terrell Owens interview changed the course of my life? Sure. Yeah, I was a college freshman at Syracuse. I had just started freelancing for ESPN, doing one-off TV type pieces, but it was video for ESPN.com. And the summer going into my freshman year of college, I got to sit down with OJ Simpson that got a lot of exposure and created some opportunities for me. So that led to me having the ability to pitch these one-off pieces to ESPN. And T.O., arguably the best player in the NFL at the time, was not talking to anybody in the media. But I used to have him on my high school radio show leading into that, because I met him Super Bowl week in San Diego, and he went out of his way to be nice to me. The year prior, he called into my radio show a couple days before he played in the Super Bowl. And so we do this interview at his home in New Jersey and sit down for an hour, and he ends up uh, talking about Donovan McNabb, making negative remarks about the Eagles organization, which, we're going to make news, but were kind of taken out of context because that was all that ran from this hour-long interview. And I think it created a lot of opportunity for me, because I was a 19-year-old kid at the time, and his comments led to his suspension from the Eagles organization for the rest of that season. Cost him a lot of money, but also, you know, obviously impacted his career, but also gave me kind of clarity very early on in my career for like what I wanted to do, which was be in a position where I had the ability to fairly tell stories, and never again put an athlete in a position where, they open up about their life, they make these sensitive remarks to me, and they can't air with context. So that was what led to the idea for this show, where we have a half-hour platform and the ability to feature somebody for that entire episode.
So on YouTube, Bluetooth Fox asks, are there any superstitions or pre-interview rituals that you have? I can think of a couple.
What are they?
Graham always has to have a drink of water and go to the bathroom before he gets online.
Really?
Yeah, every time.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have. I don't think I have any. I don't have any superstitions. Pre-interview rituals. I don't think so. The only thing I don't really ever get nervous anymore. The only time I've ever found myself getting nervous is if I feel like I could have done more to prepare. And so I try and avoid those situations at all costs. Every once in a while, it's inevitable because you get a booking last minute and there's just not the time to spend preparing for it that you might like, or whatever the circumstances might be. But yeah, I don't think I have any pre-interview rituals.
So, this is kind of a combination of a couple of questions. I had someone ask what your favorite sport was, and then what your favorite teams were.
Got it. Well, and also taking your questions, so ask away. Appreciate the questions, and also I should say again, I said this at the top. If you have suggestions on people you'd like to see us book for episodes, we're all ears. We welcome the suggestions. Post them in the comments on whatever platform you're watching this on, or email me, graham@grahambensinger.com. I grew up a diehard baseball fan, from St. Louis, still live here. I could recite the batting average of every significant player in baseball when I was in 8th grade, first couple of years of high school, and all of that. Not as surprisingly, and you might have heard me say this before, but I'm not a diehard sports fan anymore. Like, you would not see me or catch me watching a sports game really ever, actually. I just am a fan of good stories, and for me it's super interesting having the opportunity to talk to somebody about their path to success. Highs, lows, challenges they've overcome to get to where they are. So that's really what interests me most about sports now. But quite frankly, it doesn't matter whether we're talking to Dak Prescott, as we did in our season 11 debut week, or Tom Hanks, who we're talking to next week. They're all interesting interviews to me because you're talking to somebody about their path to success in life, and challenges that are very similar to anything that any of us would experience.
So, kind of on that note, on YouTube, we've got a couple of questions here. One, Deepak asked how you give 100% in your work, and then King K says, how do you deal with adversity and failure?
Well, I mean, 100% at your work. I've just always, especially, we're in season 11 now, especially the first many seasons when year in, year out, you weren't really sure if you'd have the opportunity to continue because you're just trying to get this off the ground. I always told myself that if I failed, I at least would want to fail knowing I did everything I could to make it a success. And so that was the one thing I just always had in the back of my head, which is invest as much time as you possibly can. So if this doesn't work out, at least I know I did everything I possibly could. And adversity and failure, I think that's inevitable. I think it's, in fact, welcome because you learn a lot from it. I think the thing that I try to encourage myself most to do now, that I struggle with at times, is to try a lot of different things, and if something doesn't work out, fail quickly and move on, and you learn from it. So, that's oftentimes I find myself, getting on myself because I'm not allowing stuff to move fast enough, not, you know, trying stuff enough and empowering our team to uh, do stuff. And if it doesn't work, fail quickly and move on. So, yeah, I think adversity and failures are a really great thing.
So NBA fan 63 on YouTube asked, "What's a normal day like when you're not recording an interview?"
Uh, Normal day when we aren't recording the interview, it depends. But if I'm at the office, so we are, after you do an interview, there's a lengthy multi-week post-production process, the editing and producing of it. And we have a really strong group of people on our team that do the day-to-day of that. But I will oftentimes see multiple cuts of a show as it's being put together, offer feedback from kind of my own personal experiences in the interview. And so I have somewhat of an active role in the uh, post production process of the content. We have many sponsors of the show, which we're so lucky to have, especially in these times. But we have everyone from Toyota and Chase and AT&T and Pepsi and Twix. So many sponsors have taken a chance on us, and GMC, and uh, those partnerships all have different expectations and requirements of them, and so uh, I have some involvement in that. In addition to that, we have all these television distribution partners and uh, you know digital and taxi and international, and so they're just you know everything's a time investment, and so then we also have to book guests for the show, which we have a great talent producer, but then I also have some involvement in that. So you just try and jump around as much as you can. There are never enough hours in the day to do everything that you want to get done, and so I've increasingly had to become at peace with the fact that I'm pretty much always going to be behind on everything. But I think that's also the nature of running a small business and trying to grow it.
We've got a ton of questions. I want to get to a little quick one here. On YouTube, Tim Bobbitt asked, "What's your favorite?"
Did you say Tim Vomit?
I said Bonnet, but I misspoke.
Okay.
Tim Bobbitt asked, "What's your favorite St. Louis pizza?"
Oh, well, I can't do that. I'm gonna
Just
then
say you love them all equally.
I love them all
Uh,
equal. I actually I eat pizza far too much. It is my biggest vice. I have been known like once a week to go get like a 16-inch pizza and consume it all by myself. And so that is, as I'm trying to get in better shape, that is the one vice that I have been completely incapable of kicking.
A little bit more serious. On Instagram, Mike Parasano asked, "What is the question you regret not asking a guest?"
Oh man, you know, okay, I'll give you one. What's the uh, Tom Hanks has been in the news. What's the topic? I forget the name of it.
Oh, QAnon.
QAnon. So it's completely ridiculous. Uh, Not an ounce of truth to this at all whatsoever. And he would have been fine with me asking him about it. I went back and forth in my head, like, should I bring this up? Should I not? And I ultimately decided against it because I'm like, you know what? While it could make for a headline and get a lot of views digitally, even asking him about it and putting him in a position where he has to explain the absurdity of this will just play in to what these people want. So I don't regret not asking that. Um, but that's an instance recently of a topic that came up that I went back and forth on if I should ask it, and I ultimately decided against it because the only reason it would have been asked would have been for a cheap headline that would have continued progressing something that is blatantly false and factually incorrect, and that's why I decided against it.
On Facebook, Donna Wagner asks, essentially she's asking about, doing more interviews with sports that aren't in the mainstream, jockeys, horse racing, women in sports. How do you choose which athletes and which sports get your attention?
Elisa would love more folks in horse racing because uh, you're big into horses. I think the only person we've done with horse racing ties was Bodie Miller, right? The Olympic skier who, it's really neat what he was doing with racing up in Pennsylvania. He's buddies with the famed trainer Bob Baffert, and Bodie's like was putting horses on treadmills and all this really interesting stuff. So we went out to Pennsylvania with him, and then Santa Anita racetrack in California. We definitely need to profile more women through the show. That's been kind of an ongoing effort we've been making. I mean, to our credit, we've pursued, you know, countless women we've been interested in featuring before and just have yet to get access to some of them. I mentioned Serena Williams earlier. I've wanted to profile Serena forever. I've wanted to profile Venus and Maria Sharapova and on and on. So that's something, we're working to do more of because I've just felt there's, we have featured a disproportionate number of men in the show. And then just in some terms of some of the obscure sports, that's honestly when we have done that, they've been some of my favorite episodes. Like the one we did in Alaska with the 4-time Iditarod champ, uh, the cancer and somebody who overcame drug addiction, Lance Mackey. We spent a couple days with him outside of Fairbanks with him and the dogs, and got to go dog sledding with him. It was amazing, like the trip of a lifetime. And I feel so fortunate through the show. We have like these once in a lifetime experiences every episode, and I actually get paid to do it. It is crazy, but we're always looking for those sorts of stories because they're a lot of fun to do, and I think make for really strong episodes.
So this is kind of an interesting question. On YouTube, Adam Saltani asks, what is the most impactful thing an interviewee has ever said to you? But then also on Facebook, Lucas wants to know, what interview have you done that still moves you today? So who have you sat down with that they've left a lasting impression on you?
I mean, there have been so many. I'd actually say the one that ran last week and the one that's running this week are two recent examples of ones that I found particularly powerful for different reasons. Um, you know, Dak and Tad Prescott, the conversation around mental health and their brother's suicide. Uh, I cannot tell you how many times I watched that part of the show, and almost every single time it brought a tear to my eye. I just so powerful, and their willingness to be vulnerable and share that with us meant so much to me. And then Ryan Lochte, the Olympian, the content comes out tomorrow digitally, and the full episode airs this weekend on TV. Ryan and his father, Steve, who was also Ryan's longtime coach, talk about the moment that all of their hard work came together. Like it finally paid off. And it was such an emotional story, not because it was sad, but just because it was, so happy that their years of dedication and work and everything like culminated in this event. And I feel like lots of folks, whether you're a big time athlete or an everyday person, have that moment. I know I have. And so that was one that, while it wasn't sad, um, I found it as emotional and touching as just about any other story we've ever had in the show.
So Thomas Marzol on YouTube, he says that your recent interview with Dak was incredible. What are your thoughts on some of the negative comments Dak got about seeking help with his mental health?
Uh, okay, so I mean, you're referring to Skip Bayless's comments, presumably. First, I should say, Skip has always been super nice to me. He's a good guy. He means well. I strongly disagree with his comments. Uh, I will say, despite Elisa telling me not to, that debate is okay and it's fine for somebody to share their opinion. That's what makes this country great. Um, However, when dealing with a topic such as mental health, um, especially when you're in a position of stature and power, I think you have to be careful uh, with what you say, because his words have impact. Uh, I don't, however, agree with those that are calling for him to lose his job, because I think that's unnecessary. Um, you can disagree with somebody, they can be wrong, but you know, he's. I think he should still continue in the position he has.
Pivoting a little bit, on Instagram, Austin Reeves6 says, who was your first interview?
First interview. Oh man, I actually don't remember
Was it your
who.
mom?
Well, my like one of my very first interviews. So I'll mention the couple that come to mind. First, I was able to get a credential when I was in eighth grade to the St. Louis Cardinals uh, baseball game. They were playing the Colorado Rockies. They had initially denied my credential, but I put up such a fuss that they ended up giving me a last minute credential to a day game while school was going on. So I left school early, went down to Busch Stadium, and I ended up talking to Mike Hampton, who was a Colorado Rockies pitcher at the time. I believe uh, Larry Walker as well. But those were just kind of short interviews in the clubhouse or on the field. And then the first longer interviews I conducted were the ones mentioned earlier: Will Clark, Bob Feller, Tim McCarver, and Ernie Banks. And it was actually funny, because I had sent out like 50 letters to anybody whose address that I could find, explaining the concept for this internet radio show I was developing in eighth grade. And obviously, like, I couldn't prepare for everybody I sent the letter out to, not knowing if anybody would ever uh, respond. And I remember the first person that called was Bob Feller, and I was completely caught off guard. This like Hall of Fame baseball player was calling about doing an interview with me. And I'm in eighth grade at the time. He starts quizzing me on his career, and of which I knew very little at the time. And he was understandably annoyed. And I remember he goes, "Well, send me another letter after you've done your research," and hangs up on me. So sure enough, I was like devastated and so humiliated. Do the research, send him another letter, and to his credit, he called me back and we did a long interview.
So was that your most challenging interview? Courtney on YouTube wants to know which one.
Oh man, most challenging. I don't know. I guess uh, there are different reasons that create challenges. Sometimes, you're expecting to have half a day with somebody, and then you find out last minute they're cutting your time significantly. So you're the challenge is trying to cover what you want to in a reduced amount of time, and that might be you're concerned because you aren't going to be able to get enough topics in, or you're concerned because there's a sensitive topic that it's going to be challenging to get into now that you have reduced time, or a challenge could be despite having a lot of time with somebody, there's just really sensitive topic that you aren't really sure how you're going to get into it, or you have a lot of time with somebody but you ask a question, most people give 30-second answers and they're giving 10-minute answers to every question. You're like, oh my gosh, we're going to get through 3 hours and I'm going to have only been able to ask a few questions. So there are all sorts of different challenges, and you just kind of feel it out as you go. And I mean, ultimately, what's kind of most important from the outset is developing a relationship with the person during the taping where they feel like you're prepared, and that it gets to a point during the conversation where they're trusting you, and that then creates the ability for them to share a little more than they might otherwise be willing.
So on Facebook, Jake asked what motivated you to enter this career and what was your process of getting there?
Uh, what motivated me to enter the career? So I used to be one of these kids who'd run down to the ballpark, where the St. Louis Cardinals played, Busch Stadium, to wait for players to get their autographs. And that started when I was in elementary school, continued through middle school. And after a while, I realized it wasn't the autographs I liked getting, but just meeting the players, hearing their stories, engaging them in conversation. And so I tried to think of a way to do that, and the internet sports radio show was just my way of doing that. Predating that, starting in I think fifth grade, I created a baseball card store on the internet. I would buy packs of baseball cards in really large quantities and then sell them in smaller quantities through the website as well as through eBay. And I had my own little e-commerce business going, and so I kind of taught myself how to create a free website through one of these services online, and so that allowed me to, at least in the early days, create my own internet radio show, which just was really a website serving as an archival home of the work, and ended up enjoying it. And one thing led to the next, and I think I just lucked out big time that my childhood hobby and passion was able to turn into a career.
On Instagram, Keenan Ben says, What's the interview you missed out on that you regret the most?
Wait, say that again.
The interview you missed out on that you regret the most.
Hmm.
What's the one that it was right there and you couldn't quite make it happen?
Oh man, I'm not really sure. Should I? Is there one that should come to mind that that you can think of that?
Are you saying you get them all?
No, I mean there. Well, no, I'm talking about a booking that was we had and then we lost.
Or
I-
is there someone that maybe you didn't interview because maybe at the time they hadn't reached their peak, or you just couldn't make it happen, that then they became famous and you regretted it?
uh, should there be?
I don't think
Okay,
so.
you're giving me a look. Yeah, nobody comes to mind immediately. Having said that, there are lots of people that I haven't been able to get access to that I really want to get access to. A few of whom I've mentioned, already. And then there, are others that you think it's gonna happen, and they send you a nice email, and then for one reason or another doesn't end up happening, but it will at some point. And yeah, I think I used to get kind of hacked off when somebody would commit to something and then you know go back on their word or back out. But what I've realized, over 11 seasons and doing this is you can't let it get to you that much. Everybody has their reasons, and I hope to have the opportunity to host the show for a long time. And if it can't work out now, hopefully it will be able to work out at some point down the line.
You probably deal with a lot of big egos with some athletes, but Kavan on YouTube asks, who is the most down to earth? Maybe it's someone who surprised you.
I mean, this is one of my favorite people to talk about, but I'd say probably the most down to earth person we've ever profiled is Sir Richard Branson. I mean, he's, this British tycoon, this multi-billionaire who has been so successful in his business career, and then in addition to that, done all these record-setting world adventures, knows, you know, everybody under the sun, from world leaders to celebrities to you name it, and is as laid back as they can be. I randomly ran into him in North Africa. He invites me to play, chess and tennis with him, and I have dinner and drinks that night with him and his personal assistant. And then a week or a month later, we're with him for a week in the Bahamas taping an episode. So he's one of my all-time favorites, but also one of the most laid-back folks that we've ever taped. And I'd also put Tom Hanks up there as well. I haven't had the opportunity to spend as much time with Hanks as we did with Richard Branson, but he was, after we corresponded off and on email for 4 years, and then he emailed me giving me a date and time to do it, and that was that. Like, nice as can be. And it is funny that sometimes the biggest, most successful people are the ones that are nicest and most laid back.
So on Facebook, Ashton asked, how did swimming with Ryan Lochte go? And then Gina wants to know if you caught any fish with Dak. So how are the activities going?
Wait, what Ashton asked this on Facebook? Ashton Edwards, our executive producer, trying to sneak a question in. What did she ask?
She asked, I don't even see her comment anymore.
Yeah.
She said something like, heard you went swimming.
Oh, how did the swimming with Ryan go?
Yeah.
It was
Gina, who is not affiliated with the show, wants to know about fishing.
So the swimming with Ryan, I think, went well. I mean, I'm a terrible swimmer, and he's an Olympic swimmer, so that was mildly comical. He was in a Speedo. I think he thought it'd be funny for the cameras for me to be in a Speedo as well. The viewers lucked out in not having to see me in that. But yeah, he destroyed me in the pool. It was quite fun. And then fishing with Dak, actually, we did not catch a fish. We didn't spend that much time fishing. I could tell Dak was stressing a bit because he had not caught one yet for the cameras. And Tad, his brother, to his credit, was giving it his best effort, but we just didn't get to spend enough time out there fishing to catch one. But how cool is that? Like, he has a 7-acre property. He has a pond in his backyard that they fish in. He has a 50-yard football field in his backyard. He has a putting green. Quite the setup he has, and it's really cool for a guy who grew up in a trailer park, who came from nothing. Mom working around the clock. Her biggest concern was Child Protective Services coming to take Dak and his 2 brothers because she was gone so much working. That somebody comes from that background, through his own hard work, is able to create so much success for him and his family. Like, I love stories like that.
You do a lot of activities, and for someone who claims to not be very athletic, you play a lot of sports on...
What do you mean I play a lot of sports?
Well, I mean, you were in the batting cages with John Hamm. You took a serve from Novak Djokovic. You told me you did get on a horse with Bodie Miller.
Oh, I'm not sure if I did. Yeah, I
Okay,
can't
well,
remember.
we'll say that you did. Is there a sport that you've tried on the show that you enjoyed so much you continue to do outside of the
I
show?
yeah, I try and play tennis every so often. That's fun. I'm terrible at it, but I will play the occasionally with my sister Lisa when she's in town in St. Louis. But yeah, I think as everybody can see when they see me either on the tennis courts or the basketball court or football field or wherever, I think it's pretty easy to tell I'm not an athlete.
So on Facebook, Christopher Wareham said, "Are there any interviews that you're actually wanting to wait to do? Someone you'd like to interview after their career is over, or after they've had a chance to develop a little bit more?
Uh,
Who do you have on the back burner?"
uh, I mean, nobody that immediately comes to mind. However, I would say that I have found through the 11 seasons we've been doing the show that the interviews are generally more revealing when you get somebody a little later on in their career. I found it's always harder when you're interviewing a professional athlete in the kind of early days of their career to get them to open up. So whenever the opportunity presents itself, I would generally pick a athlete who's at the tail end of their career or retired over somebody that's just starting out. There are always exceptions to that, and I would never turn down some big time current athlete. It's just the kind of depth to which you can get in the conversations much different.
Nathaniel on YouTube asks, "What are your thoughts on the state of modern sports media, and should anything change?"
Uh, well, my comments would be less about the state of modern sports media and just the current state of modern media. I think because the audiences fraction so much, there's so many different platforms that people consume media. A lot of platforms that were once prominent are dying. The competition for ad dollars, which is the general source of funding for a lot of media, is fiercer than it's ever been. I think because of that, you know, headlines can be too clickbaity. Uh, you know, there's it's made it more difficult to distinguish fact from fiction. I think algorithms are such that if you're, consistently clicking on information that or content that you think's fact, but it's actually not, the algorithm will continue serving you that type of content. And, sometimes it's difficult to figure out what is real and what isn't. And I don't know that that's good for the consumer. I think choice is good, but I think there needs to be an easier way to distinguish what's real from what's not.
Okay, we're going to take two more questions.
Two more questions.
All right, the first one is from Fuad Habab, and I'm going to addend his question a little bit. He says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, wrong person." Jamie Roche. Jamie Roche says, "Are there any lessons or philosophies you've taken from Branson and DeJoria that you apply to your own business now?" But I want to know if there is a lesson that you've walked away with from an interview that has stayed with you that you're applying in your daily life.
Uh, I mean, whether it's Richard Branson, John Paul DeJoria, or somebody else we profiled for an episode of the show, I feel very fortunate that I have the opportunity to sit down with these uber successful people and just talk to them about their life and how they got to where they are. And the one generally consistent theme with everybody is just hard work, self-belief, in many instances, unrelenting perseverance and ambition and persistence. And so I don't know that it's any one thing, but there are a lot of common threads among the people that we profile. So I often leave a conversation with whoever we're profiling and just feel motivated and inspired. And like, even if you're doing something at a smaller scale, you feel just I often feel the desire to like do more after walking away from a chat with somebody like that. So that's it for me. It's, I selfishly use the chats as internal motivation.
Okay, last question. We get this about 100 times every time you do one of these lives. Lots of journalism students watch your show, they study you, they want to know how to do what you do, and they want advice from you. So what advice do you have for people trying to make it in journalism?
I mean, a few things. In a couple comments about journalism and just then in general for somebody young who is pursuing a career. First, journalism. Put yourself in a situation where you can get reps. It doesn't matter the scale at which you're getting the experience or the audience size you have. Just put yourself in a situation where you're getting experience to develop your craft. That is of most important. Second, and this really applies to more than just journalism, relationships are so important. Network, because even if you don't think it's something that can help you initially, at some point down the line, it will. So meet as many people as you can, and people, even if you think they're out of your reach in terms of their prominence, people are surprisingly willing to grab a coffee or during COVID hop on a Zoom or offer advice. So take advantage of that. It is invaluable. And then lastly, I mean, regardless the career you want to pursue, self-belief, hard work, and education. If you do that, I think you'll be fine. So that's it. So thank you guys. We are occasionally doing these now. If you want us to do more of them, let me know. If you think they're horrible, you can tell us that too. But I so appreciate you guys watching. It is because of you that we have the opportunity to do this. As mentioned a couple times already, if you have guest suggestions, send them in. Comment on any of the platforms that you might be watching this on, or email me, graham@grahambensinger.com. You can tweet me at Graham Bensinger. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And then again, if wherever you're consuming the content here now, we also have the full episodes that are weekly on TV. So check my website, grahambensinger.com, for local listings in your area. What, Lisa?
We also have a podcast.
And we also have a podcast as well. So subscribe to the podcast, and that is the one place you can go for the long form interview. But again, Dak Prescott was last week. Ryan Lochte. Clips start running digitally tomorrow, airs on TV this weekend. We have Tom Hanks the week after that, and Lindsey Vonn the week after that. So season 11, we are off and running. And again, so appreciate the support and you guys tuning in. And that's all we got. So thank you.